A year from our past.
In a year from our past, we'll be doing a brief history look back at a year from each decade and what we remember from those years.
So Scott will be looking at 1985, and I'll be looking at 1995.
I'll get us started with 1985. So some popular movies that came out in 1985, we had Back to the Future, Fright Night, The Return of the Living Dead, The Breakfast Club, Teen Wolf, Cocoon, Rambo, First Blood Part 2, Enemy Mine, The Goonies, Weird Science, The Color Purple, Rocky IV, St. Elmo's Fire, Pee-wee's Big Adventure, and Commando. The best picture that was released in 1985 for the Oscar was Out of Africa. And the highest grossing movie from that year was Back to the Future with $385.5 million worldwide.
Some popular movies from 1995 include Braveheart, Apollo 13, Toy Story, Clueless, Bad Boys, Billy Madison, Seven, 12 Monkeys, Dead Man Walking, The Usual Suspects, Heat, The Basketball Diaries, Casino, Get Shorty, Die Hard 3, and Outbreak. The movie that walked home with the Best Picture Oscar was Braveheart, and the highest grossing film of 1995 was Die Hard with a Vengeance, with a worldwide gross of just over $366 million.
All right, so I think there are some pretty good movies from both of those years. From 1985, I really liked Commando for like an action movie.
Highly entertaining.
And it's one of my favorite Arnold movies, I think. And The Goonies was quite big. One of my favorite kind of comedy movies that I've watched so many times, even recently, it was Weird Science.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember the Best Picture Out of Africa that much from 1985.
I've heard of that movie. It's got Meryl Streep in it, I'm pretty sure. But I've never seen it.
I definitely remember Braveheart, and it's one of my all-time favorite movies.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll definitely give 1995 Best Picture the edge on that one. And of course, we've talked about Rambo before. Rambo Part 2 was, again, it was my favorite Rambo movie after seeing that, but...
That's the one where Rambo goes to save those POWs, right?
In Vietnam,
Yeah.
I really liked that movie, but as I got older, again, First Blood was a better movie.
Mm-hmm.
Rocky IV is actually one of my favorite Rocky movies. That's the one with Ivan Drago.
Oh, when he fights the Russian.
Yeah. The Return of the Living Dead is one of my favorite zombie movies. I'm pretty big into zombies and that whole genre, like books and movies and whatever.
Is that Sam Raimi who directed that, or
No.
no?
It's actually the first time that zombies kind of were able to speak, and it's where the term brains come from.
Oh, really?
So that was the first movie that had zombies that went around saying brains.
Mm.
And of course, Back to the Future was, some people say it's the perfect movie, one of the only perfect movies.
Yeah, I love Back to the Future.
And then 1995 movies. Seven is actually my favorite movie of all time.
Is that right?
Yeah.
I thought it was Empire.
No, Seven's my number one movie. I just, it's pretty dark, but I couldn't get over it.
Yeah, it's very dark, very disturbing. Great twist ending.
And another movie I really, really enjoyed was The Usual Suspects.
Yeah.
Again, talking about twist and stuff.
Great twist ending, yeah. All right, and for me, I think Back to the Future is probably the most notable of the 1985 movies. I hadn't seen Fright Night until like a couple years ago, and I actually saw the remake with Colin Farrell afterwards. And
I don't think I've seen that.
It's actually pretty decent. A lot of these remakes of like 1980s horror movies are kind of garbage, but I thought Fright Night was pretty well done. Let's see, Teen Wolf. Teen Wolf, I loved that when I was a kid. I like the sequel too, even though it's garbage. Yeah, First Blood Part 2 is really entertaining. Didn't really see any of the others there on that list except for Commando. And for the 1995 movies, Braveheart was great at the time. Toy Story, I remember babysitting the neighbors across the road, and they really loved that movie. Seven is excellent. I really like 12 Monkeys. I didn't like it too much the first time, but I think when I watched it years later, I kind of grew to appreciate it more. The Usual Suspects is a classic. Heat's a great bank robbery movie where we have
heist movie.
Yeah, we got Al Pacino and De Niro like in the same scene together for the very first time. And then Basketball Diaries, we see Leonardo DiCaprio as kind of a junkie who kind of gets clean, which is pretty good. Yeah, Die Hard 3 was pretty entertaining. Not the greatest one. I mean, I think Die Hard, the first one, will always go down as the best one. But Die Hard 3 is a worthy sequel, I suppose.
And some popular hit music from 1985. We had Tears for Fears with Everybody Wants to Rule the World. Huey Lewis and the News with The Power of Love, which is in the Back to the Future soundtrack. Simple Minds, Alive and Kicking, and Don't You Forget About Me. Aha with Take On Me. Motley Crue, Home Sweet Home. Corey Hart with Never Surrender. Paul Young with Every Time You Go Away. Wasp, which is, I put this in there because it's a band I liked, with Blind in Texas. Madonna, Crazy for You. The Cult, She Sells Sanctuary. And USA for Africa came out with the song We Are the World. The song of the year from the Billboard Top 100 was Wham! With Careless Whisper. And the Grammy for Song of the Year was the We Are the World from USA for Africa, which was just a bunch of famous musicians who got together to record this song.
And for 1995, some hit music included Seal, Kiss from a Rose, TLC with Waterfalls, Hootie and the Blowfish, Hold My Hand, Michael Jackson came out with You Are Not Alone, Mariah Carey's hit Fantasy, Montel Jordan, This Is How We Do It, Bon Jovi, Always, Notorious B.I.G., One More Chance, Blues Travelers, Run Around, The Real McCoy came out with Another Night, Shaggy had his hit song Boombastic, and U2 with Hold Me, Thrill Me, Kiss Me, Kill Me. Song of the year, according to the Billboard Top 100, was Coolio's Gangsta's Paradise, and the song that walked away with the Grammy for Best Song was Seal's Kiss from a Rose.
Some of the 1995 songs I think I know, but I don't recognize a lot of them. I'm sure, as always, if I heard some of them, I'd probably recognize them.
Mm-hmm.
Like Kiss from a Rose, I think I know. Waterfalls, I know. Other than that, I'm sure I know the U2 song. And I know Gangster's Paradise. But other than that, I'm not sure.
I think the Seal song and the U2 song were both featured in a Batman movie.
Yeah.
Could have been like Batman Forever or something like that.
None of that is music that I was really into. So.
Yeah.
And from 1985, We Are the World is pretty well known. Most people would know that song.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of these musicians and bands, put out albums with these singles, of course, which had, they also had other great songs on some of these albums.
Yeah.
I was actually a pretty big Simple Minds fan.
Mm-hmm.
Take On Me has been a pretty popular song even today.
Music video was kind of unique for its time.
Yeah, it was the one where the guy was like hand-drawn and
and
came out of the
he's looking in the mirror and
helmet.
stuff like that, yeah.
I was a big Motley Crue fan. That wasn't one of my favorite albums of Motley Crue. I think that was Theater of Pain, but Home Sweet Home, was the big hit off that album.
Mm-hmm.
I remember Paul Young from music videos. Like that video was always on.
I remember that song Every Time You Go Away from the ending of Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
Okay.
You remember that? Right at the end, they play that song.
Madonna had a big year that year. She had other songs from that album other than Crazy for You, and I'm a huge Cult fan. She Sells Sanctuary is a pretty good song.
Yeah, I like that song a lot.
They have a lot of other songs that I like a lot more, but it was a big year for them too.
Yeah, my memory of 1985, I remember most of these songs just from movies because I was only a year old. So like later on, I heard The Power of Love, as it appeared at the beginning of Back to the Future. The Cult, I do really like that song. I think I didn't hear that until later on. And the USA for Africa song, I don't really remember. May have seen the video. I remember they're like swaying back and forth and they're kind of...
Yeah, it had all kinds of musicians in it, like, Michael Jackson.
Yeah.
I don't know who else. Lionel Richie.
Yeah, and for the 1995 music, TLC Waterfalls, they had a very famous music video about like a guy getting AIDS. and I think like another kid getting shot.
That's the one. Don't go chasing.
Yeah, Don't Go
Waterfall.
Chasing
Yeah.
Waterfalls. Hootie and the Blowfish, they were huge back then in 1995. And then I think the lead singer, Darius Rucker or Trucker or something like that, he has like a huge country western career right now.
I guess looking back at it, kind of rock style back in the 90s and 80s
Yeah.
became kind of country today.
That's right, yeah. Yeah, a lot of these songs from the 90s as well, I remember from movies like This Is How We Do It by Montel Jordan. That was in that movie Multiplicity where Michael Keaton clones himself. Notorious B.I.G. I listened to later on in high school. But yeah, Song of the Year, Gangsta's Paradise. That was huge. And then, Weird Al had that parody, Amish Paradise, which I thought was pretty funny at the time.
Yeah, okay. I remember that.
Yeah, so some pretty good music from both years, I think, here.
All right, and in 1985's TV news and events for TV, we had Live Aid, which broadcast all over the world. It had an estimated 1 billion people watching it. A popular toy release was Nintendo released the NES in North America. Some technical breakthroughs. We had Microsoft releasing the first version of Windows 1.0. British scientists discovered a hole in Earth's ozone layer. The first .com domain name was registered, which was symbolics.com. And in some news and events from 1985, we had Route 66 was removed from the United States highway system. Michael Jordan was named the NBA's Rookie of the Year. President Ronald Reagan and the Soviet leader Gorbachev met for the first time in Switzerland. And mafia boss Paul Castellano is shot on orders of John J. Gotti.
And some TV events from 1995 include the History Channel being launched. There are live broadcasts of the O.J. Simpson trial that began in this year. In 1995, Drew Barrymore flashed David Letterman on air. Sailor Moon broadcasts in the U.S. for the first time. Xena, the Warrior Princess debuts. And part 2 of The Simpsons' Who Shot Mr. Burns episode airs, revealing that Maggie shot him by accident.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert. Some popular toy releases in 1995 include Nintendo's Virtual Boy. And technical breakthroughs include cosmonaut Valery Polyakov returns after setting a record 438 days in space. Amazon.com, incorporated a year earlier by Jeff Bezos in Washington State, starts its online bookstore and sells its first book. And the Java programming language is announced to the world. And some big news events from 1995 include Bosnian Serb commanders who are charged with genocide and crimes against humanity in the United Nations International Criminal Tribunal. There was a sarin gas attack on the Tokyo subway. This involved members of the Aum Shinrikyo religious cult, and they released sarin gas on 5 subway trains in Tokyo, killing 13 people and injuring 5,510. We also have the Oklahoma City bombing, in which 168 people, including 8 federal marshals and 19 children, are killed at the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building, and 680 wounded by a bomb set off by Timothy McVeigh. And finally, we have O.J. Simpson found not guilty of double murder for the deaths of former wife Nicole Simpson and Ronald Goldman.
So for the news and events from 1985, I really don't remember any of them at that time. I was just too young and never paid attention to news. But obviously all the 1995 news and events I recall.
Which one sticks out for you the most?
2 of them. The Oklahoma bombing.
Mm-hmm.
I was glued to watching that on probably CNN at the time.
Yeah.
And the OJ trial.
Yeah, those 2 stick out for me the most, like at that time. I later became interested in like just studying cults and stuff, and I thought the Aum Shinrikyo, the Japanese one with the sarin gas attack, I mean, that one was kind of fascinating because a lot of those guys who were in that cult were really well-educated guys with like doctorate degrees and stuff, and here they are, letting off this poisonous gas in the subway, and you think, what the hell's going on with these guys,
In TV, again, the Queen kind of stole the Live Aid festival with their performance. And I remember 1995, I remember watching the Drew Barrymore flashing her tits
Yep.
at Letterman on the show.
Yeah, she gets up on his desk.
I didn't watch The Simpsons that much, but I remember the who killed or who shot Mr. Burns. I think that was kind of a mock-up from the Who Shot JR.
Yeah. Well, I like that episode I like the first part because they set it up so that there's so many different suspects.
Right.
You think maybe Waylon Smithers did it, maybe you think Homer did it, And then it turns out it was just kind of an accident, you know.
And it's kind of interesting. Nintendo first released the NES in '85, and they launched the Virtual Boy in '95. I'm not sure what the Virtual Boy is.
The Virtual Boy, it was like, I got one for Christmas one time, and you know, I was such a spoiled little brat that I was actually angry because I was expecting to get a PlayStation. And I opened up this box, and it was the Virtual Boy. It was okay. The only thing is, like, you had to stand up while you were playing it, because if you had it on like a coffee table or something, you'd probably put like a kink in your neck, because you'd be like crouched down, like with your head stuck in this thing. But it wasn't very good.
And in '85, we had the first domain name being registered, and then in 1995, one of the most famous domain names of all time, Amazon,
Yeah.
started. So 10 years later.
Yeah, they pretty much hold like a monopoly on that kind of like online stores, you know, these days.
Of course, there's a lot more music, movies, news events from both of those years in 1985 and 95. So feel free to let us know some of your favorites or memories from those years in the comments below, wherever you find this podcast.
We'd love to hear from you regarding these years and get your feedback. Now let's move on to the main topic of the episode. It's time for Battle of the Decade. Thanks for watching that clip, and if you like what you saw, be sure to hit that thumbs up button. Leave us your comments below and check out more at 10yearsapart.com. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to our channel here on YouTube. You can find the full episode of that podcast this clip was from, plus other videos from us right here. Thanks again.